had to live by faith that this too shall pass and I will be healed in God's name. And something beautiful will come out of all of these challenges.
Hello, and welcome to Braving It with Tracie Renee, where stories of inspiration and strength are going to help you discover your brave. Welcome to Braving It with Tracie Renee, and today on the show I have my friend Sarah Wallis. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello. Thank you.
So we've only known each other a couple years, but when I heard your story as of late, a recent Ironman contender, I had to tell people your story. I wanted you to share what you did to accomplish that and to get through that. But before we talk about your recent Ironman, let's talk about your first one, because you've done 4, right? Okay, crazy. Yep. Let's talk about the first one and how that one went.
So my first sign up to do Ironman actually was back in 2011 is when I wanted to do the full Ironman distance. And the reason I even got into the sport is because of my fear actually for lakes. That's what started all of this actually. I have been terrified of lakes. And at that time we were living in Lake Stevens. And I would take the girls to the lake and they would go out and they would swim and they would play and I would stay on the beach and they would ask me to come out and I'd go out maybe up to my knees, but other than that. And so I wouldn't swim in the water with the girls. And the more I thought about it and watched my girls play and me as a mom, I realized I was teaching my kids to live in fear of things. And so you have to face your fear. And one way to do that is not waste money, because that's something that is big to me, is not wasting money. And so I signed up for a triathlon because that would throw me into the lake and I had to finish because I wasn't going to waste my money. And so I did my first triathlon actually back in 2009, freaked out, panicked. I mean, I finished it, but I knew I wasn't over the fear. There was still a lot of fear. And so I just kept going back to the sport. And then the distance would get a little longer and a little longer. And so that's when in 2011, I noticed that there were a lot of men signing up for the long distance of Ironman and not as many women. And later I learned why not as many women do the sport. But I wanted to go out there and do it. And so many years in high heels and really starting to run long distances actually ruptured my second and third metatarsal in my foot. And I would continue training and actually duct tape my feet to keep my toes down and keep the metatarsals from moving. But eventually the pain got too much. I had my foot reconstructed in 2011. That's also when my first marriage was starting to really struggle. And I had virtually no help through that surgery. And so I had deferred registration to 2012 and went through a divorce in 2012 and did my first Ironman. And I was very blessed. My ex-husband brought the girls up to Ironman. But basically it was one of those moments just like this recent one where I wasn't walking per se and had to rebuild everything over the year of 2011 to 12. And just had a fantastic time. There were there was like 13 of us that did Ironman together about that 2012 race. So new support system, new friends, facing fear, all of that stuff together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. That was your first one. Okay. I'm in awe. I'm going to tell you that. So you not only, focused on your fear and overcame it. I mean, did you overcome it by that point, your fear of the lake? Or are we still working on it?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Even at the race, I waited until kind of towards the end, because at that time they were doing what's called a mass start. And so first of all, for anyone that doesn't even know kind of the whole Ironman distance, the Ironman distance is a 2.4 mile swim. It's a 112-mile bike ride, and then you run a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. And the question I always get is that in the same day? Yes, it's in the same day. You have 17 hours to finish it. And at that time, they're doing what's called a mass start. So about 3,000 athletes enter the water at the same time. And so I hung back over on the left side, and I swam longer because I just stayed out where all the rescue boats were. And I just stayed out there so I didn't swim with people touching me per se. So that's kind of how that one went, was I just stayed away from everybody. And then I knew I wasn't going to die. I wasn't going to get injured. Somebody was there that could save me if I needed to be saved. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Unbelievable.
So, no, and I'm still not over that fear, because even if we talk about when we talk about the fourth one, you'll know that I still am living with that fear big time. Yep.
Wow.
Every day, every time I go out to the lake, even yesterday swimming, still like scared.
Interesting.
But I would say I've overcome it, but I'm still scared, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes total sense. So let's talk about the next one then.
Yeah. So new relationship, remarried, right? All life is good. I had fantastic training. Everything went really well. Actually, a student from my very first year teaching. So, and that was 2002. Her and her husband were at the race. My mother-in-law was there. My parents were there. My kids were there. So huge support system. And there's trees in Coeur d'Alene, kind of along the lakefront. And I had a hat on, and I was getting ready for the race and getting all my stuff on. And I came up and I smacked my head on the tree, which gave me a concussion later, right? Like, we figured out that that was the situation, but I wasn't about not to do the race. I had a huge support system there, and I'm not going to waste money. I'm going to face my fear. I'm going to just keep going and do. And if you look at my swim, it was all over the place. It was horrible. It was very hard swim, but I finished it, did the bike ride. I was sick out. My husband was like, do you need anything? I'm like, I can't take anything from you. I'm in the porta potty during the run. Like, I'd rather have 5 babies, is what I told my mom, all at one time, instead of doing this. But 14 hours later, I made it to the finish line again. Yeah. And that was a hard one. There was a forest fire. It was super hot that day. And while I was out there, there was somebody who's a coach in Seattle that was in a massive sufferfest. And when I saw him suffering, I knew it's okay to be in that suffering stage. And so afterwards, I reached out to him to be my coach, because I was really inspired by his efforts. Even though he was really suffering that day, I was inspired to keep going, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so he coached me for my third one.
Okay. So far, the first 2 meets, or you call them meets?
Races. Yeah.
Races.
Yep.
Have been with struggle.
Always. All the way through the training, right? Because I'm at the first one, right? Single mom, and I was working a second job. I was teaching also, right? Like, living in a 1-bedroom apartment. We literally start our entire whole life all over again for that first one. And then that second one, right? You're in a new relationship. I'm gone 15 to 18 hours a week in training, working a job, right? So always with struggle, always. But my mantra out of my very first one was every day a little stronger. And then it became every day I am, which is the M dot, I am a little stronger. And so you just keep moving forward.
Wow. Okay. And never along the way did you say, I think I'm done, I don't want to do another one? Oh,
no. Well, okay. You say that when you're out there, like, okay, I'm good. But you can't make decisions in the moment when you are struggling, right? So you can say those things, but they don't mean anything, because when you get to the finish line, you forget it. It's like having a baby.
It is.
It hurts like really bad.
Yeah.
But then when it's done, you're like, oh, that was so awesome. I love you. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes. I could do that again. Yes. Okay. So let's talk about the third one now.
Third one was honestly pretty stinking good for the most part, right? I really had solid training. I had a great coach. It was some of the most challenging training in the respect he really pushed me in all of my training. I had done 6 100-mile rides before the race even happened. And so the training, it went up. So I was 18 to 22 hours a week of training and working full time. And so just that dedication and getting out of bed at 4 a.m. to do the stuff that you needed to do every single day, that was the hard part, because there's that mental game. You don't have to. This isn't life or death. My life doesn't ride on completing the race or not. So that's the mental game, was just getting up every single day to do something for myself that was hard, that I didn't have to do. There's no requirement. So that's where the challenge was that mindset of just, I can do this.
You decided to do another Ironman, but something happened.
Yeah.
What happened?
So I wanted to start qualifying for the Boston Marathon. And so that meant working on speed. And so January 11th, 2019, I was working on one of my long runs and thought I would throw in just a little bit of speed. And I was on the Centennial Trail right around mile 7.5 of my run. And I got this really sharp, excruciating pain down the back of my leg. And so my humbleness was not with me that day. And I did not call anybody to come pick me up. And so I literally turned around on the trail and sang to myself, every step I take in Jesus for the next 7.5 miles to get back to my car. And it was incredibly painful, but I just kept, every step I take it, and just kept saying it over and over again. Got in my car, went and got some coffee because I'm like, right, one of those, you're like, okay, this will go away. This too shall pass. I will be okay. And I got in the shower and it was not going away. The pain was so excruciating, but no swelling, no bruising, no nothing. You go to the doctor and they're like, oh, it's your back again. Cause I had some compression fractures in my back in 2014. So we kind of thought, well, maybe that's what it is, that's what it is. And so you rest for 6 weeks, pain's not going away. And so I went back to the doctor and they ordered an MRI. And of course it's like, oh, you need a surgeon. So you make your appointment for the surgeon, you get ready to go see the surgeon. And then the day before, the governor says, ha, no surgeries for anybody.
Wow.
I had ripped my hamstring off of my pelvis. And it is not considered kind of like that life or death surgery during that COVID time. Oh. And so I had to wait until June to have my hamstring reattached.
Okay. Sorry, that made me like, yeah. So you had to wait till June of 2020.
Correct.
And so how long was it detached?
Almost January 11th till the middle of June.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Okay.
June 17th. Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay.
And you still have to go to work. You still have to face the day, right? And so scar tissue. So with a torn hamstring, the best way to recover is surgery within the first 3 weeks. But I was misdiagnosed, right? We were kind of at that start of COVID. So it was kind of, hey, get people in, get them out, get them in, right? And so I don't think we dug deep enough. And because I have had injuries in my back and stuff, it's just easier just to say, oh, that's what that pain is down the back of your leg. And I don't fit textbook. I didn't have the bruising. I didn't have any swelling, right? So then that's when then I developed the lean in. Oh, you can't really see. I have all my mantras tattooed, right?
Okay.
So every day a little stronger, then learning to lean in to God and lean into Him for my strength, and just that day to day, because it was so painful to do things, right? And so, but blessing in disguise, right? Because then school gets closed down, so I don't have to be at school walking everywhere, and so I could work from home, and that was a lifesaver in the respect of pain, because I don't know if I would have been able to continue working with how much pain I was in. And I don't do pain meds, so I don't do them very well. So it wasn't something that I'm going to do 6 months of, right? So you just learn to cope and manage and lean into God for that strength.
There you go. Wow. So then you finally get the surgery in June. And what was the recovery time?
So it was 4 months of physical therapy. And this, if you can't tell, I'm pretty independent. I don't really lean into other people, lean into God, but I don't like to lean into other people. But with hamstring stuff, so once they reattach it, which I was awake for, by the way, because my daughter's 8th grade graduation was the same day. And so I was awake for my whole surgery, which was pretty stinking cool. I went straight from the OR to 8th grade graduation.
Okay. You say cool. I don't think most people would think that was cool. What up?
I learned a lot about 401ks. My surgeon was super obsessed with 401ks and investments. And so that's what the medical staff were all talking about. So I learned a lot while I was in there. But so it's 12 weeks of no stretching of the muscle. And so literally my husband had to put my socks on, put my underwear on, put my shorts on, dry me off, shower me, do all of that stuff for me over those 12 weeks. So not only did I have to lean into God, but I had to lean into everybody else around me as a support to be able to make it for those 12 weeks. Cause you can't do really anything. 6 weeks you're in a brace. And then for the last 6 weeks, you're starting to get movement, but you're not, no pull, because that will pull the tendons off of the pelvis again. So there was that part. So then it ended up being a total of 4 months though of going to physical therapy. And at that point I had an old injury. So I had a torn labrum in my hip and a hip impingement. And so that's the top of the femur was disfigured basically. And so at that point, my deductible was met. Right. And so, nobody was doing anything. Nobody's doing right. We're all stuck pretty much at home, and blessing in disguise too. We weren't back in person at school. And so that Thursday leading into winter break, I had them do my hip. So I literally graduated from physical therapy on Wednesday and then went back in for surgery the next day to have my hip done. And that recovery is completely different because it's a joint. So they wanted up and moving right away. And so another 4 months of physical therapy. And then basically up until this last year before I could really do anything that I love. And I still am not 100%. There's still a little bit of pain and there's not the speed and stuff. But through all of that, that's where the Live by Faith also came in, because of all of the different challenges we were facing with coming back to work in person. My physical stuff, knowing that I have these dreams of doing Ironman and running and swimming and biking and hiking and living a very active life. I had to live by faith that this too shall pass and I will be healed in God's name, and something beautiful will come out of all of these challenges. And so every day I am a little stronger. I'm leaning into God and living by faith, and here we are, 4th Ironman, boxes now checked. And I had such a fun day. I may have been a basket case the day before, but the race day was awesome.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Before you go there, I have to say, if I'm you, and I'm not, because I don't plan on doing an Ironman, but
you never know.
God, well, okay. All right. Never say never, especially if you were my coach. But anyway, so you go through all of this, you have all these surgeries. And I'm thinking, it's been a good run. I've done what I wanted to do. Excuse me. Did you see that bug fly in my mouth?
It's protein. You're good.
Wow. Okay. That is so
ready
funny.
For Survivor now. you can eat bugs. I said, you're ready for Survivor now. You can eat bugs.
Clearly, I think it was a mosquito. I saw him hovering. Okay. What happens on a live show? This is crazy. And I saw him hovering and then I breathed in and he just kind of, okay, well, now I'm not hungry. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let me.
Where's your vegetable? You need to have some vegetable with that protein.
There you go. Excuse me. Okay. I'm thinking I'm good. Did you ever kind of go, it's been a good run? I'm like, literally, like, pardon the pun, but I'm good. Right.
No, because God hasn't told me I need to stop yet.
Awesome.
No, I look at my mom who's 73 and she skis and she snowboards and she's still working. She's a park ranger. And it's like, God put me on earth to live life and just be active and go and do. And I've got an amazing mom as a role model, and he hasn't said stop. Now, if he says stop, of course I will. But right now he says, go and live and do. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to live.
And be an inspiration to others while you're doing it. That's what God calls us to do, right?
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Let's talk about this last race. You just finished Ironman last month.
Yeah. A little less than Actually, I think tomorrow will be a month.
Okay.
Nope. Today is. Ironic. Because it was Sunday, June 25th. And here we are, June 20 or July.
Here we go.
Yep.
I mean, well, happy 1 month.
Yeah, God totally does this.
Yeah. So you had to train again, completely starting over almost, right? With the surgeries and the hamstring and all that. I mean,
Yeah, because I wasn't walking. I mean, it literally was not even walking.
wow.
Yep. And so you're just picking up and you're just trusting the people that are helping you along the way. Because I have a coach and I'm trusting him, and he totally understands injuries and respects where that boundary is, but also will push you a little bit. But there was a lot of talking with God.
Yeah.
And part of it is right, because I started a new job this last year in a brand new district, whole different role that I've never done before. Obviously, I was working on my principal certificate and taking a full load, right? So 13 credits a quarter, and training for this Ironman. And so there was a lot of leaning in and living by faith, but also just learning to dig deep when you don't want to do something, but you know you're called to do it. And so you got to show up every day and you've got to do it because there's an ultimate purpose and reason behind why you do what you do. And you get tired, it wears you out, you cry, things don't go the way you want them to go, you get sick, right? Life happens. But what do you do when life happens? Do you retreat and hide, or do you get up and you keep showing up and you keep doing? And that's really what it's about, was just keep showing up and keep doing. And when I sit and look at my 6 months of training, there was only almost 19 hours. It was like 18 hours and 37 minutes of coach planned time that I didn't show up for. And those were pretty legit reasons. I was sick. And then I went through some challenges at my job that in March that I just mentally needed to just spend way more time plugged into God and being still in the moment. He was teaching me to be still and just lean into him and not try to do things on my own, but let the course happen the way that he needed it to happen in my life. And so that was the be still moment in my life, was those almost 19 hours basically of just be still and do nothing. I want you to do nothing, but just trust me.
You sound like a person that doesn't do well doing nothing.
No. And that's what this summer is about, is learning to kind of be okay with doing nothing. And it's okay to sit in the hammock, because that's what God said I needed to do this summer after post Ironman, right? Like, okay, now it's time to sit for a moment and be still.
First of all, I want to say kudos to Brian. If you're listening, he sounds like he's been an amazing support, caring for you, and God clearly gave you to each other. And I love that. Before we end, I'm sure you have so many words of wisdom for people that are watching this. Now, this is all about braving it, being brave, and hearing stories of brave that's going to encourage other people to do whatever their brave thing is. It may not be Ironman, it may be,
right,
but whatever that is, right?
Yep, 100%.
Fear, overcoming. What's a piece of advice or words of wisdom you'd like to give somebody?
There's a lot of things that I've learned. I think that's why I enjoy Ironman so much, because really it's a great metaphor for life, honestly, right? You never know what the day is going to give you, but you have to show up and just try. And their mantra is like, anything is possible, right? And everybody's brave is going to look different. Our calling on our life is different for each of us, right? And that's the cool thing that God has for us, is that each of us have our own calling. And it's learning to listen to whatever that calling is and responding, and not trying to do it on your own, but leaning into God and living by faith is going to be how it happens, right? And whatever that happened it's going to be beautiful in exactly what you need for you, yourself, and the people around you, because some of the challenges that you face aren't for you. It's for somebody else to learn something from what you do, because God called you to do it. And so there's people watching you and they're learning from you, and they may know you or they don't know you, and they know through somebody else or whatever. Just show up show up, listen, lean in, live by faith. And really every day you are a little stronger when you lean into God and you live by faith. Our weaknesses are exposed when we don't lean into God and live by faith, because that's when Satan is going to come in and try to take advantage of you, right? And so we only can be brave when we lean into God and live by faith. That's where the bravery is going to come from. And you can still be scared, right? And still be afraid that something's not going to go the way you want it, because our plans never go the way that we want them to. They only go the way God wants them to go. And so we just got to go. We got to do and just let it happen, because beautiful things come out of it, things that you don't even know. Who would have known that a shot put thrower in high school, right? So non-running, not super athletic, right? You are athletic, but it's a different kind of athlete, would be doing an endurance sport as an adult. But that's what God called me to do, to teach me and to be able to be an example for others. And so just show up, let God do it, lean in, live by faith.
Show up, let God do it, lean in and live by faith. I think that's a beautiful ending to our time together today. Sarah, you are an inspiration, and I am blessed to know you. I'm going to be following you, and we're going to do this again after your next one, because I'm sure you're going to have stories. I'm sure there's going to be stories.
I'm sure I'm destined to be injured again, because God really likes to teach me that way for some reason.
Oh, thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you, friends. I appreciate it. Blessings to everyone. Lean in every day a little stronger, and make sure you're living by faith. Best way to experience life.
Thank you for tuning in to Braving It with me, Tracie Renee. My hope is by hearing other stories of brave, it will help propel you forward into doing the same thing. If you've enjoyed this episode, I hope you will follow and subscribe. Remember, brave begets brave. The more you step out in courage, the more courage you will find.